So we're talking with Andrey Kurkov, Ukrainian author, and he is in Kyiv. How are things in Kyiv right now, Andrey?
Well, outside it's quite normal. I mean, no panic. Everybody is walking along the street as usual. Actually, yesterday the cafes were full. I couldn't find a place for 40 minutes with my friends to have lunch. But at the same time, people started talking more about possible war because they were avoiding this topic of conversations. But suddenly, I mean, today I overheard 3 conversations in different places about what people are going to do in case of the Russian aggression. So it does influence the atmosphere, the situation on the border, and the escalation actually of the militant rhetoric on Russian side.
What are your expectations? Do you think that there will be an invasion of some sorts from Russia?
Well, there will be something. I don't know what it will be, because if Putin brought practically different divisions and armies from all around Russia, including border with China, he will not just back down and order them to go back without receiving at least half of what he wants. And so I hope there will be no all-out war, because for that he needs even more soldiers. But local escalation and invasion into one part of the territory is possible.
I've heard that in Russia itself, the idea of a war or even an invasion into Ukraine is quite unpopular. Is that what you're hearing? And if so, do you think that could be affecting Putin's plans?
I haven't heard this. I mean, I was told actually by a friend of mine that he is reading Russian chats on internet, and he read that actually the Russian soldiers on the Ukrainian border, they are bored and actually eager to attack, because I mean they have nothing to do.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you had sent me a note about the oligarchs and so on leaving the country.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Of course, yeah. I mean, on Saturday, the 13th of February, there were more than 20 private jets with oligarchs and rich businessmen leaving the country. And there was a private charter for 50 passengers ordered and paid for by a pro-Russian party, which is called United Party for Life. And just 5 minutes ago, there is a list of members of parliament of Ukraine who left in the recent 2 weeks for abroad, and which means that they will not be taking part in the parliamentary sittings, which I think they were moved to tomorrow, the emergency meeting of the parliament. And actually half of the pro-Russian deputies are absent. One of them drove into Belarus, the others flew to Dubai, Doha, Nice, France, Paris, etc.
Is that right? And how about the other? Is it mainly the pro-Russian deputies, or others have left also?
Oh no, also some deputies from Zelensky's party, the servant of the people, they also left.
And what is the general view as far as how Zelensky is handling this crisis?
I don't think there is a general view at all, because I mean, mostly the news is about who among Western leaders is visiting Ukraine, who is going first to Moscow and then to Ukraine, and who is going first to Kyiv and then to Moscow, like Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor. I mean, he is today in Kyiv and tomorrow is going to Moscow. So, I mean, in all this activity, there is not much thought about the role of Zelensky. I mean, he does record videos and addresses to the citizens, asking them not to panic and saying that everything is under control. He was a couple of days ago near Kherson attending the trainings of the National Guard, of the military police on the administrative border with Crimea. So, I mean, he is there, he is present, but I don't think Ukrainians take his role as a very important one. I mean, he's head of the administration, Yermak. I think he's taken more seriously because obviously he is running the office of the president and he is taking a lot of decisions.
And so, are you saying that Zelensky is kind of seen kind of as a football being kicked back and forth by the major powers, or?
No, I wouldn't. I would not say this exactly, but I mean, he didn't make serious geopolitical statements. He was angry with American leaders that they are provoking panic and they are publishing every day the information on the Russian preparedness to attack. He was unhappy with Boris Johnson. I mean, his reactions are not really statesman reactions. I mean, he's worried about possible panic and the effects of this panic on the economy of the country. I mean, if there is a war, there will be no economy.
Right. Now, on a slightly different subject, you know, there's been a lot of talk outside Ukraine in the West about, which I mean west of Ukraine, on the division between Russian speakers and Ukrainian speakers. And you've written that historically there hasn't really been much of a division, or at least that's my understanding of what.
I mean, there is no division on the street. People speak. I mean, many people are bilingual. I mean, there are no problems among the people. But there are political parties, minority parties, which are aggressively against Russian language, and there are small parties which were aggressively for Russian language and sometimes against promotion of Ukrainian. But now it is not an issue. I mean, the law to support the state language was approved by the majority in the parliament. The only state language is Ukrainian. You can buy books in Russian. You can publish books in Russian. My books are published and written in Russian. So if somebody publishes the newspaper in Russian, he should publish also Ukrainian language version according to the new law. So there are new laws, rules, and maybe restrictions. And what is probably very irritative for Putin, for Russia, is that there is no more teaching in the school in Russian language. There are no Russian schools left. All the schools are Ukrainian language schools. But I mean, the children are studying Pushkin and Dostoevsky, and Russian literature is taught as a part of world literature.
But in the past, wasn't it the case that Russian and Ukrainian were more or less equal, and they were both like the official language?
No. The case was that in Kyiv, 90% of the schools were Russian schools and 10% were Ukrainian schools. And the parents would send their children, even from Ukrainian families, from Ukrainian-speaking families, to Russian schools because they knew that if you don't speak Russian, you won't make a career. You won't get a good job. You won't be taken seriously.
And how about the situation in eastern Ukraine, in Donbass, and especially in the two so-called republics? What's the situation with the languages there?
Well, I mean, Ukrainian language is practically banned in separatist republics, and it doesn't exist anymore in Crimea. all the Ukrainian schools are closed down in Crimea. The Ukrainian language newspapers are closed down. On Ukrainian part of Donbass, the schools are teaching in Ukrainian. People in the streets are speaking both, mostly they speak Russian, but in Lugansk region, for example, there are Ukrainian language towns and Russian language towns nearby. So the education is now all in Ukrainian, and nobody controls what you speak on the street, at home, in the shop, etc. You can go.
Excuse me, you say it's all in Ukrainian or all in Russian?
Sorry?
You said the education in Lugansk is all in Ukrainian, or did you mean all in Russian?
No, no. I mean, on the Ukrainian controlled part of Lugansk region and Donetsk region, the education is only in Ukrainian. On the separatist republics, only in Russian.
I see. And I mean, my impression is that there is some like increased tension between Ukrainian speakers and Russian speakers, or an attempt to stir up some tension between them.
In Ukraine, there is no tension. I mean, there are people who are upset that there is no education in Russian, but this is a minority, and usually people who are retired and who have good memories of their youth in the Soviet Union. But this nostalgia is becoming less and less popular because of the politics of Russian Federation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kyiv remains probably 65–70% Russian-speaking city. You can go to Russian drama theater and watch performances in Russian, it doesn't matter. But the education is in Ukrainian.
But you say that if somebody publishes a newspaper in Russian, that it also has to be in Ukrainian for instance, in Kyiv.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have Ukrainian version of Russian language websites in Ukraine, or newspapers or magazines you publish. So you can publish in any language, but there should be a Ukrainian version of this.
I see. Okay, so would you have any further? Oh, yeah, one last question as far as the current situation, and you were commenting about the oligarchs fleeing the country, and I'm wondering if the situation with the oligarchs and the famed corruption and so on, what's the situation with that? What has been the situation with that over the last year or so?
Well, I mean, Zelensky, although I think he was helped by Kolomoisky to become a president, after that he started distancing himself from oligarchs. Mm-hmm. But there was no real fight. Maybe there is less influence now in the politics, but still the major oligarchs have their people in the parliament and they have their people in the ministries. So I think they still keep some kind of control over what is happening.
Okay. Any final words, any message that you'd like to send to people here in the United States?
Well, I mean, I think many people abroad, they don't know the history of Ukraine, and they can not only receive false information about what is happening, but they can also misunderstand what is happening. So, I mean, I would advise everybody who is interested in Ukrainian affairs and in this conflict, have a look at a couple of books or websites to understand that Ukraine was independent territory for 300 years until 1654. And at that time, Ukraine had elections of the hetman, who was a military leader and head of the territory, whereas in Russia there was monarchy from the very beginning. So, I mean, we have two different mentalities. Mentality of people who used to choose who should run the country and who always have their own opinion, and who would never accept one political party system or authoritarian regime, and Russian mentality of collective behavior and I mean, some kind of been accustomed to a monarchy, to one Tsar who should be the ruler of the country until his death. And actually, the collective mentality came to Ukraine not only with the Russian politics, but also with the Russian language. Russian language was the instrument to remove or to push aside Ukrainian individualistic mentality. I mean, Ukrainians were not ready to be collectivized in 1920s and 30s, and that's why actually Stalin deported 300,000 Ukrainian farmers to Siberia. So all these small things should be taken into account when somebody says that or repeats the words of Putin that Ukrainians and Russians are the same folk, the same people.
Okay, well, that is certainly a subject for a lot of future discussions. And on that note, thank you very much, Andrey, for taking the time.
You are very welcome, John.